I didn't think moving a fence would turn into the biggest mistake my neighbor ever made. But yeah, it did, and the craziest part? I didn't even notice it at first. So here's the thing. I live in this quiet little neighborhood outside of Boise, Idaho. Nothing fancy, just one of those HOA-controlled suburbs where every lawn looks like it's auditioning for a toothpaste commercial. You know the type. Trimmed hedges, identical mailboxes, passive-aggressive newsletters about trash can placement. Yeah, that vibe. I bought my place about 3 years ago. Small single-story, decent backyard, enough space for my dog and a grill. That's all I really cared about. And right next to me lived this guy. Let's call him Greg, mid-50s, always in cargo shorts. The kind of guy who waves at you but never really smiles, like he's keeping score of something you don't know about yet. At first, Greg was fine. Not friendly, not hostile, just there. We'd do the occasional hey across the driveway, maybe talk about the weather, standard suburban NPC dialogue, nothing memorable. Now the fence between our properties, it had been there long before I moved in. Wooden, a little weathered, but straight, solid, clearly marking where my yard ended and his began. I never questioned it. Why would I? Until one Saturday morning. I'm out back, coffee in hand, letting my dog run around, and something just feels off. You ever get that? Like your brain notices something before you consciously do? I'm staring at the fence, and I can't quite place it, but it looks closer. And I mean, that sounds crazy, right? Fences don't just move overnight. So I shrug it off, go about my day. But then later that week, I'm mowing the lawn, and now I know something's wrong, because the space between my patio and the fence feels tighter, like noticeably tighter. So I grab a tape measure. And yeah, turns out, I'm missing about 3 feet of my backyard. 3 feet. Now at this point I'm thinking, okay, maybe I'm misremembering, maybe the original listing was off, maybe I'm losing my mind. So I pull out my property survey documents, the ones from when I bought the house. And guess what? The fence is not where it's supposed to be. Not even close. It's been shifted into my property. And suddenly that off feeling clicks into place. Like, oh, this isn't a mistake. This is intentional. So I walk over to Greg's place, trying to keep it calm. Because maybe there's some explanation, right? Maybe a contractor messed up. Maybe it's temporary. I knock on his door. He opens it, already looking annoyed, like I just interrupted something extremely important, probably reorganizing his garage screws or something. I go, hey man, quick question, did you have work done on the fence recently? And without missing a beat, he goes, nope, it's always been there. Just like that. Flat. No hesitation. And I'm standing there thinking, okay, either this guy has the confidence of a seasoned liar, or he genuinely believes that, which is somehow worse. So I tell him, I checked my survey, and the fence is about 3 feet over onto my side. And that's when his whole tone shifts. He crosses his arms, leans against the doorframe, and goes, well, maybe your survey's wrong. Just like that. No curiosity, no discussion, just dismissal. And I laugh, not because it's funny, but because I can't believe the audacity. I go, yeah, I don't think the official county records are wrong. And he just shrugs, and says, sounds like your problem. Then closes the door, right in my face. Now at this point, I'm not even mad yet. I'm just stunned. Because there's a certain kind of confidence it takes to just take someone else's land and act like it's always been yours. And that's when I started paying attention to everything else. See, once you notice something like that, your brain starts connecting dots. I realized Greg had been slowly pushing boundaries for months, parking slightly over the line, letting his trash cans drift onto my side, even planting shrubs suspiciously close to the fence. It wasn't random. It was incremental, like he was testing how much he could get away with. And I hadn't noticed. Until now. So I go back inside, lay out all my documents, the survey, the purchase records, even old listing photos, and sure enough, in the photos, the fence is exactly where it should be. Which means, at some point, Greg moved it. Not replaced, not repaired, moved. 3 feet into my yard. And here's where it gets interesting. Because most people, they'd either ignore it or go straight into a screaming match. But me? Nah. I decided to do something way worse. I decided to handle it legally. And I know that doesn't sound dramatic. But trust me, sometimes following the rules is the most devastating move you can make. So I didn't argue with him again. Didn't raise my voice. Didn't touch the fence. Instead, I made a call. I hired a professional land surveyor. And not just any guy. I'm talking licensed, county recognized, the kind of dude who shows up with tripods and laser equipment like he's about to map out a NASA landing zone. And when he got there, Greg was outside, watching. You could see it in his face. That mix of irritation and something else. Nervousness. Because deep down, he knew. He knew exactly what he'd done. The survey took a few hours, and I just stayed quiet, let the process happen. Greg tried to make small talk with the surveyor. You know, that fake friendly tone people use when they're trying to control the narrative. Oh yeah, that fence has been there forever. And the surveyor just nodded, didn't engage, just kept measuring. Professional. Unbothered. And when he finally finished, he walked over to me, handed me the results, and said, yeah, your neighbor's fence is definitely on your property. Clear. Simple. No ambiguity. And I swear, I felt this wave of calm hit me. Because now it wasn't just me saying it. It was documented, verified, official. So I thanked him, paid him, and went back inside. And that's when I made my next move. Because if Greg thought he could just take my land and get away with it, he had no idea what was coming next. And honestly, neither did I. Because what started as a simple fence dispute was about to turn into something way bigger than either of us expected. All right, let me pause the story for a second, because this is where things stop being just annoying neighbor drama and start becoming a textbook case of how people get themselves into serious legal trouble without realizing it. According to standard procedure, property boundaries in the U.S. aren't based on where a fence happens to sit. They're based on official surveys filed with the county. A fence is just a structure, not a legal boundary. And yeah, a lot of people don't know that. Or worse, they pretend not to know. From a legal perspective, what Greg did could fall under something called encroachment. Basically, when someone builds or moves something onto land they don't own. And here's the kicker. Even if it's just a few feet, it's still a big deal. In some states, if you leave it unchallenged long enough, it can turn into adverse possession, meaning they can actually try to claim that land. And this is where it gets psychological. This is a psychological trap. People like Greg don't start with big moves. They test boundaries slowly. A few inches here, a casual denial there. Because if you don't push back early, it signals that you won't push back later. And once that pattern sets in, they escalate. So what I was dealing with wasn't just a fence. It was someone betting that I wouldn't do anything about it. And honestly, that's where he messed up. So after the survey came back, I didn't rush. That's the part people always get wrong. They think justice is loud, dramatic, immediate, but the real damage? It's quiet, methodical, and documented. I took a couple days, sat on it, reread everything, looked up local ordinances, HOA guidelines, county procedures. Yeah, I went full nerd mode, because if I was going to do this, I wasn't leaving any gaps. Then I sent Greg a letter. Not a text, not a knock on the door. A certified letter. Short, clean, polite. Basically said, hey, a licensed survey confirmed the fence is on my property. I'm requesting it be moved back to the correct boundary within 14 days. If not, I'll proceed with corrective action. No threats, no emotion, just facts. And that's the thing about people like Greg, they don't respond well to facts. 3 days later, I get my answer. I come home from work, and there's a note taped to my door. Not even in an envelope, just taped. Real classy. It says, and I'm not kidding, touch that fence and you'll regret it. No name, no signature. But yeah, didn't exactly need Sherlock Holmes for that one. And I just stood there, reading it, and I remember thinking, wow, you really picked the wrong guy for this. Because at that point, it wasn't about the land anymore. It was about principle. So I did exactly what I said I would do. Day 15, I made the call, hired a fencing company, gave them the survey, got permits through the HOA, which, by the way, Greg had completely ignored when he moved it the first time. Big mistake. Everything was approved, logged, scheduled, and the best part? It was all completely legal. The crew showed up early Saturday morning. Trucks, tools, the whole setup, and I swear, it felt like watching a slow-motion countdown. Because Greg? Oh, he noticed. The moment they started unloading equipment, his garage door flies open, like a scene out of a movie, and he storms out, already yelling before he even reaches the fence. What the hell do you think you're doing? And the crew just pauses, looks at me. Because yeah, they've seen this before. And I just calmly walk over, hand him a copy of the survey and the permit, and say, I'm moving my fence back to my property line. And he doesn't even look at the paper, doesn't read it, just crumples it slightly in his hand and goes, that fence is mine. And there it is. Not confusion, not misunderstanding. Ownership. He actually believed that. So I go, it's on my land. And he steps closer, like uncomfortably close, and lowers his voice. You don't want to do this. Now I'm not gonna lie, there was a moment there. That split second where you think, okay, is this about to get physical? But I didn't move, didn't raise my voice. Because the truth is, when you know you're right, like legally, undeniably right, it gives you this weird kind of calm. So I just said, it's already happening, and nodded to the crew. And that's when everything blew up. Greg starts shouting, like full volume, neighborhood echoing shouting, accusing me of trespassing, theft, harassment, just throwing out words hoping something sticks. And then, of course, he pulls out his phone, calls the police. Right there. And I remember thinking, perfect, because this is exactly where I wanted this to go. So the crew keeps working, slowly dismantling the fence, panel by panel, while Greg paces back and forth like a caged animal, narrating the whole thing like he's building a case in real time. You're all witnesses. This is illegal. Nobody responds. Because again, professionals. About 20 minutes later, police show up. 2 officers step out, already looking tired, like they've dealt with this exact situation 100 times before. And Greg rushes up to them immediately, talking fast, pointing at me, pointing at the fence. He's tearing down my property. He's stealing my fence. And one of the officers just raises a hand. Sir, slow down. Then they walk over to me. And here's the thing. This is the moment where most people panic. But I didn't. Because I had everything ready. I hand them the survey, the permit, the certified letter, even the HOA approval. And one of the officers starts flipping through it, nodding slightly, then looks at the other officer and goes, yeah, this checks out. Just like that. Simple. Clean. Done. They walk back over to Greg, and you can literally see the shift in his face as they explain it to him. That slow realization that he's not winning this, that this isn't an argument anymore. It's a fact. And he starts backpedaling. Well, I mean, it's been there for a while. It's basically my side now. And one of the officers cuts him off. Sir, that's not how property law works. And man, that line, that hit harder than anything I could have said. Because now it wasn't me versus him. It was reality versus denial. The officers tell him to step back, let the crew finish, and if he has an issue, he can take it up in civil court. Which, spoiler alert, he never did. But here's where things take a turn. Because as the crew continues working, they start digging new post holes along the correct property line. And about maybe 1.5 feet down, one of the guys hits something. Not a rock, not roots, something solid. So they stop, call me over, and I look down into the hole, and I see a pipe. But not just any pipe. It's PVC, freshly cut on one end, running diagonally from Greg's side into mine. And I'm thinking, okay, that's weird. So we follow it a bit, carefully, and it leads to this small drainage setup behind his shed. Except, that shed is also over the property line. Not by a little, by a lot. And suddenly everything clicks. The fence wasn't just moved randomly. It was moved to hide something, to create space, to make his setup look legal when it wasn't. And now, it's exposed. Fully. So I call the city inspector. Because at this point, yeah, we're not just dealing with a fence anymore. We're dealing with unpermitted construction, illegal drainage redirection, possibly even code violations. And when the inspector shows up later that week, let's just say, Greg's day gets a whole lot worse. Fines, notices, orders to remove the shed, reroute the drainage, restore the property line. All of it. Because once one violation gets uncovered, they start looking at everything. And Greg had a lot of things. So by the end of it, my fence is back where it belongs. My yard is fully mine again. And Greg, he's tearing down half his backyard to fix problems he created trying to take 3 extra feet of land. And the wildest part? If he had just left it alone, none of this would have happened. But he didn't. Because he thought no one would check. He thought no one would push back. He thought he could get away with it. And honestly, for a while, he almost did. So yeah, that's how a 3-foot fence dispute turned into a full-blown property violation case. And if you're thinking, man, that escalated quickly. It didn't. That's actually the whole point. It escalated slowly, quietly, one small push at a time until it finally snapped. And that's the lesson here. The lesson here is, people rarely cross big lines all at once. They test you first. They take an inch, wait, see if you react, then take a foot, then 3. And if you don't push back, in their mind, that silence becomes permission. Looking back, I can see all the early signs with Greg. The way he'd inch his trash cans over, the way he acted like shared space meant flexible rules, the casual dismissiveness. It wasn't random. It was a pattern, a slow build. And I ignored it because it felt too small to confront. That's the trap. This is a psychological trap, where the cost of speaking up early feels higher than just letting it go. But over time, that cost flips. What you tolerate in small amounts becomes something much bigger, something harder to undo. And here's the part a lot of people don't want to hear. Being nice in these situations doesn't always mean being passive. There's a difference between being respectful and being avoidant. I thought I was keeping the peace, but really, I was just giving him room. Now, from a legal perspective, this could have gone very differently if I had waited longer. And I mean years longer. Because in some places, if someone openly uses part of your land and you don't challenge it, they can try to claim rights over it. It's rare, it's complicated, but it exists. And more importantly, legal battles get messier the longer you let things sit. Evidence fades, timelines blur, people dig in deeper. According to standard procedure, the moment you suspect a boundary issue, you document everything. Photos, measurements, records, not because you want to fight, but because you want clarity. And clarity is what protects you. That's what changed everything in my situation. Not anger, not confrontation, documentation. Because once the survey came in, once the permits were approved, once everything was on paper, it stopped being a he said, I said situation. It became reality. Verifiable, undeniable reality. And here's something else I didn't expect. Following the rules. It's actually intimidating to people who don't. Greg wasn't prepared for that. He was prepared for an argument, maybe even a shouting match, something emotional he could push against. But calm, structured, legal action? That's a different game. There's nothing to twist, nothing to manipulate. It just is. And when that pipe got exposed, man, that was the moment it all flipped. Because suddenly, this wasn't about me anymore. It wasn't even about the fence. It was about everything he had been doing behind the scenes, all the shortcuts, all the assumptions that no one would look too closely. And that's another lesson here. When someone cuts corners in one place, they're probably cutting them somewhere else too. You just haven't seen it yet. So yeah, I got my yard back. That part's satisfying, sure. But honestly, that's not what stuck with me. What stuck with me is how close I came to just ignoring it. How easy it would have been to say, it's just 3 feet. And how that one decision, to actually check, to actually act, changed everything. Now I'm curious. What would you have done? Would you have knocked on his door again? Tried to reason it out? Let it go to avoid conflict? Or gone straight to legal action like I did? Because here's the thing, there's no perfect answer. Every situation's different. Every neighbor's different. But one thing I will say, ignoring it rarely makes it better. It just delays the moment you have to deal with it. Usually when it's bigger, messier, and way more expensive. And if you're dealing with an HOA neighborhood like mine, oh man, you already know, those rules can either protect you or make your life miserable, depending on how you use them. In my case, they actually worked in my favor because Greg skipped the approval process entirely. And that gave me leverage I didn't even realize I had at the start. So yeah, check your boundaries. Literally and figuratively. Because sometimes, the biggest problems don't show up all at once. They creep in quietly, a few inches at a time. Until one day you look around and realize something that used to be yours isn't anymore. And by then, it's a lot harder to take it back. But if you catch it early, if you stay calm, and if you play it smart, you don't have to fight loud to win. You just have to be right.